Hey, Bright Spirits. We are on Gemini Pro. This is actually a kind of an older doc I was working on before several of the most recent innovations in AI, because it happens like weekly to monthly when something's upgraded exponentially. But prior to one of the most recent upgrades, I was doing some IQ research. You can look at this as I scroll to refresh myself with what the hell I was actually looking into in the first place. And what I found intriguing is not only the research, because once again, this is what academics are afraid of, people just having papers being produced in sound with the tone of thorough research, while the whole time it could just be a fabrication or hallucination. So once again, always important to read the sources you're sourcing information from while using these new systems. Now, with that being established, what I really want to get to is the summary of the research paper. I had eventually asked for a more abbreviated form of the product, and what it had given me as a result was an entire podcast with like fictional people with just, AI voices emulating human interaction to basically format the paper, the research, into something consumable, if my taste were for podcasts, which I think is amazing and terrifying, but also amazing. And I'm going to include this in the video once I'm done rambling about it a little bit. But this is just a pathway of the process and the thought on how myself and Gemini even got to this point. But once again, what I found was most intriguing was the audio overview. Now, when I asked it to generate the audio overview originally, I was just expecting it to just read the paper, to just look at the paper that it produced, give me a summary of it, and it gave me an entire podcast. And here we are.
All right, so for today's deep dive, we're unpacking a really interesting stack of sources. We're looking at global and specifically U.S. cognitive trends, really from 2000 up to 2024. And the data suggests, well, a pretty major shift in how we think.
It really does. And, for most of the 20th century, we saw this incredible trend called the Flynn effect.
Right, where IQ scores just kept going up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Consistently. In the U.S., it was about 3 points every decade. It felt like, the definition of progress.
But that's the thing, isn't it? All this new research suggests that progress might have, run its course.
Or even reversed. That's the core of what we're seeing here, this reverse Flynn effect.
And it's not just in one place.
No, studies across a lot of developed nations, we're
Yeah.
talking Norway, Denmark, the U.S., they're all showing that the growth has stopped. And in many cases, scores are actually starting to fall.
So let's dig into the U.S. specifics. There was that one big study from Northwestern University.
Yeah, that one's key. It spanned from 2006 to 2018, and it found pretty significant drops across 4 out of 5 cognitive areas.
4 out of 5. And what were those exactly?
Things like basic verbal reasoning, visual puzzles, what they call matrix reasoning, and even number series skills.
But here's the part that I find so fascinating. The one area that didn't drop.
Spatial reasoning.
Exactly. Things like 3D rotation tasks. Our sources show that between 2011 and 2018, American scores there actually went up. So how does that work? How can general performance be falling while that specific skill is improving?
Well, it shows that the decline isn't a uniform collapse. It's highly specialized. Certain skills are degrading, while others, maybe skills we use more in a modern visual world, are improving.
That makes sense.
And if you look at a different group, like undergraduate students, the profile has changed dramatically.
Their average IQ has fallen quite a bit, right?
It has. It's down to a mean of about 102 by 2022. But this is probably because higher education is just so much more accessible now.
So the student population is starting to look more like the general population.
Precisely. Their average is naturally being pulled closer to the national average, which is 100.
Okay, so I want to shift gears a little. Let's talk about some of the the more persistent gaps that the data shows.
Right, the historical gaps.
Our sources confirm the IQ gap between Black and white Americans has historically been around 15 points. But crucially, that gap was narrowing for a long time.
It was. Between 1972 and 2002, there were really significant gains. Black Americans gained between 4 and 7 IQ points on white Americans. Real progress was being made.
But even with that progress, we still see these big gaps in academics today.
We do. If you look at the NAEP data from 2022, that's the National Assessment of Educational Progress for 4th grade math, it's stark.
How stark are we talking?
White students scored, on average, 29 points higher than their Black peers, and 22 points higher than their Hispanic peers. So the achievement gaps are very much still there.
So when you put all of this together, the IQ trends, the academic scores, what's the scientific consensus for you, the listener?
I mean, it's overwhelmingly clear. These differences in scores are attributed to environmental and socioeconomic factors. SES, not genetics.
And SES is it's such a powerful factor.
It's a huge mediating factor. I mean, differences in family SES can explain anywhere from like 34% to as much as 77% of these achievement gaps.
Wow.
Yeah. If you have low SES, you just have less access to things like good nutrition, healthcare, and maybe most importantly, cognitive understanding.
So at the end of the day, the big takeaway here is that intelligence is not static. It's shaped by your environment, by your nutrition, your education, the stimulation you get. That's the leverage.
And that kind of brings us to a final thought for you to chew on. Some of the theories for this whole reverse Flynn effect point to things like increased media consumption, maybe less deep, sustained reading. So the question to leave you with is this. What stands out to you about how our modern, digitally saturated world might be selectively and maybe negatively influencing the specific ways we're able to think today?
If you listen to the last 4 minutes of the Generative podcast about IQs falling, why, and tracking some of the statistics, I would love to know your thoughts on the accuracy of the information if you are a researcher or academic in the field yourself, or if you just straight out believe it, if it is indeed true, if it is enough factual information for you to debate about it or co-sign. So leave your thoughts or leave your experience in the comments below concerning AI teaching us how dumb we are and formatting it in ways that we can best digest.